So I'm live now. Okay. My name is Ken Cross, and I'm running for the office of President of the United States. I don't have a teleprompter, but I do have some notes to my left, so I'll look over to them now and then. I've written many articles over the years that address significant problems that are faced by our country, and I have developed specific, detailed responses to those problems and solutions to them for your consideration. The articles are recorded on my website, which can be located by using a internet search of Ken Cross for President. The article that I am talking about today pertains to federal debt. There are a few facts that need to be stated before we get into the depth and the meat of the discussion. And one of these facts is that in 1980, the national debt was less than $1 trillion. Just 20 years later, the national debt was 5.5 trillion in the year 2000. During the George W. Bush administration, the national debt doubled from 5.5 trillion to 11 trillion. So far, under the Obama administration, an additional 8 trillion has been added to our national debt for a total of just over 19 trillion. The Obama administration published a forecast of 2017 budget that forecast that the deficit in the year 2022, in the year 2020, will be 22 trillion. Of the 19 trillion of debt that we currently have, approximately 14 trillion is debt held by the public. That's by citizens in this country and other countries themselves and different institutions. The remaining 5 trillion is debt that is owed to different government agencies. It's called intragovernmental debt. And that debt is to the Social Security Trust Fund and to other trust funds. In the year 2019, the Social Security Trust Fund will have less money coming into it than money being paid out of it. At that time, the Social Security Trust Fund will have to start redeeming some of the special series bonds that the federal government issued when it borrowed the money from Social Security. What that means to us is that the federal government must start repaying the trillions of dollars that it borrowed from the Social Security Trust Fund in the year 2019. Then, of course, there will be the cost of entitlement programs that are in place at that time. There will be interest on the debt. There will be the military cost that we have to fund, and there will be domestic discretionary spending. So with those revenues that we have to pay for those expenses, we already run a deficit. So the trillions of dollars that we have to pay the Social Security Trust Fund have to be paid on top of the cost that we have to pay just to sustain our government operations. So somebody could say, well, why do we have to concern ourselves with the debt? We've had high debt before, but we have been paying the interest on that debt and not the debt itself being paid off, which we have to do. We cannot, as a country, default on any debt to anybody without losing our credit worthiness. And if we were to lose our credit worthiness, there would be a shocking economic impact to our country and all over the world. So that debt can and will be paid off. So now the question is, we look at where we're at, and we're in this situation of a great amount of debt. The interest on the debt now is high already. As the interest rates climb in years to come, the interest expense will be even greater proportion of our revenues. So we say to ourselves, well, what does this lead to? What are the implications? Well, history has taught us that throughout the years, there have been countries that have gotten into situations where they have massive debt. And the usual result is they enter into periods of decline, which eventually lead to fundamental changes in the form of government. The United States is only approximately 2.5 centuries old, and we have this attitude somehow that we are exempt from the rules of economics and of history that say that there could be major ramifications of not paying our own bills as we should, of running huge deficits and debt. But those implications are real, and we have to recognize that they are real. Thomas Jefferson said at one time that I place the economy among the first and most important of Republican virtues, and the public debt as the greatest of the dangers to be feared. He knew at the beginning of the country that the implications, the tendencies of democracies were to be getting to a point of electing people who would promise them to give them things and promise them that at the same time they wouldn't have to pay for them, which cannot occur in the long run. Instead of asking for more benefits that we can't afford and cutting taxes when we already have deficits, we should do the patriotic thing and balance our budget. Neither of the major parties is really even emphasizing that. One is talking about extravagant additional social programs, and the other is talking about significant tax cuts for all of the candidates are. We cannot continue to go down that road without great risk to our children, grandchildren, and all of posterity. I want to address one thing about reducing taxes. There's been a constant argument over the last 35 years that if we cut taxes, it will stimulate the economy, and that stimulation will result in more overall revenues coming in. The problem with that is this: if you were to reduce everyone's tax, every worker's tax to $1, then in fact you would stimulate the economy. And instead of 140 million working, we might have 150 million working. The trouble is, with 150 million workers, each paying $1 in tax, we could not support our military for even an hour. We have gotten to the point of the last 35 years of cutting taxes to taxes as a percentage of GDP is less than they were even in the 50s. And still there are candidates on the right who are saying we need to cut taxes more. We need to have somebody that has the courage to say we don't need to cut taxes. We need to keep them where they're at or raise them, and we don't need to increase spending. We need to make minor sacrifices to get them in line with revenues so that we don't enter into a period of extraordinary debt that will lead us into great trouble. Someone could say, well, what's the trouble with the debt? We've had debt so far. The problem is this, and it's historically happened in nation after nation that's amassed great debt. When it comes time to pay that debt, it takes considerable political courage to pay the debt. You have three choices. You either can raise taxes, which has not been popular and an inclination over the last 35 years, or you can cut spending, which everyone's been averse to, or you print more money. And likely we would take the third option because that's what countries around the world tend to do when they get in trouble with massive debt. They print a lot more money. Well, that leads eventually to hyperinflation and great economic chaos, and that has happened in Brazil and Argentina in the 80s, in Israel. It's happening now in Brazil again, and it may have, according to the IMF, maybe as much as 700% inflation. We have had over the society, over history, great periods of inflation when there was punitive penalties to Germany after World War I, they decided to print money to pay it, and their economy got so outrageously inflated that people who saved for college for a kid in their bank account ended up with money that was worth less than enough to pay a bus ride to the school. The currency just became un, unbelievably inflated. So the point is, we have a problem right now. George Washington said that in so many words in his farewell address, he said that we need to cherish as a nation public credit. That in order to have public credit, there must be revenues. In order for there to be revenues, there has to be taxes. There is no tax devised that is not more or less inconvenient and unpleasant. George Washington knew, as a leader of our country from the very beginning and in his farewell address, that we could get in trouble like we are now. And so we need to understand that our nation's founders, Jefferson, Washington, and all of them, were aware of what's occurring now and were warning us at that time not to get into the situation that we're in now. It is a disgrace that the only way that the United States of America can pay its bills now, right now, is by borrowing from foreign countries, foreign individuals, and other institutions. We need to pay our bills, however we go about taking the painful process of accomplishing that, and not continue to have great deficits and run up debt. The Congressional Budget Office has forecasted that by the year 2022, the annual deficits will be over $1 trillion a year. Our current budget revenues are only approximately 3 trillion. So things are out of hand. However, in the midst of all of this, we do want to say that there is hope. And it's hard to believe there's hope in this situation, but there is. And we can learn a lesson from a character that's in A Christmas Story that a lot of people have been able to see, called Ebenezer Scrooge. Scrooge was toward the end of the movie with a spirit of Christmas future who showed Scrooge some things that he didn't particularly like about the future. And the spirit pointed toward a headstone, and Scrooge said, "Before I draw nearer to that stone, answer me one thing. Are these the shadows of things that must be or only might be? I know that men's deeds foreshadow certain events, but surely if the deeds be departed from, the ends will change. Why show me all this if there's no hope?" There was hope for Scrooge and things worked out. There is hope for us, but the hope is in us taking responsibility for our fiscal management of our federal government, not doing as the current Democrats and the current Republicans are, Democrats with new programs, the Republicans with new tax cuts, going down that same path that would, if anything, accelerate our own crisis. So the point is that what we need to do something different. And I am running for president of the United States to offer a different option. I am available to give speeches and to be on television programs to discuss my thoughts and ideas and to answer questions, whatever the nature of the questions may be. My email address is president@kencross.com. Please communicate with me if you're interested in a speech or me attending some program and answering to questions you may have, or talking about my other articles that I've written. Please do not try to send any money to my presidential campaign committee, Ken Cross for President. I don't want any money sent to me. I have no possibility of matching the great amounts of dollars that have been funneled into the Democrats and the Republicans' campaign. The only way that we're going to get some attention to this serious issue that's really going to get some results is to communicate person to person. That's why I'm having this interview with you now, or for the job of president, or having this discussion, is that we'll put it on YouTube, pass it around, and try to get some attention to these serious issues so that we can get back on track as a nation. If you do decide that you want to contribute to anything, please make any contributions to the Reform Party USA. That party is the party that Ross Perot ran in the 1990s. It's a party that believes in fiscal responsibility. What this country needs is a pragmatic, moderate individual. Over time, we have swerved so far to the left and so far to the right with the Democratic and the Republican parties that the interest of the country is not served. We do not need in this country to turn to socialism to solve our problems, nor do we need to turn to a party that has shown over the years a great addiction to cutting taxes, regardless of the damage that cutting taxes could do to our country. We can preserve our way of life, our country, our economy for our children, grandchildren, and all posterity if we start to do things in a different way. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.